Hello and welcome to Larissa's Kitchen. Tonight I'm making a slightly more accessible version of beef Wellington using pork tenderloins. These mini pork Wellington are perfectly sized for a single serving, although a hungry guest might want two. To get started on this meal, we're going to have to travel back in time to about 4 hours earlier today. I cleaned and trimmed 2 pork tenderloins of all their surface fat, the silver skin, and the large tendon. Then I cut them into 4 pieces, although I left the tail end pretty big, and then that gets folded over and tied. To keep from steaming the pork, we're going to pan sear it for just a couple minutes on each side. This starts the cooking process and gives it a nice color. We are going to have to put this in the refrigerator to completely cool it because the puff pastry can't take any heat until it hits the heat of the oven. I also cleaned, stemmed, and chopped 10 ounces of fresh spinach. That goes into the same pan as the pork Wellingtons with just a little bit of fresh minced garlic and some crushed red pepper flakes. That gets cooked until it's completely wilted down, and then it goes into a strainer to get pressed out of excess liquid. This too is going to need to go in the refrigerator to completely cool. In addition to our pork and spinach mixture, we're also going to need 1 slice of prosciutto and a slice of goat cheese to go in each of our Wellingtons. And of course, they're getting wrapped in puff pastry. We're going to need 2 sheets. That's 1 box. To prepare this puff pastry, we need to roll it just a little bit thinner. We're going to be cutting each of these into 4 pieces. And then we're just going to use a rotary wheel to cut these into 4 even pieces. To assemble these pork Wellingtons, we're going to start with 1 piece of prosciutto on the bottom. Going to add a piece of pork on top of that, then a slice of goat cheese. Now you can use as little or as much goat cheese as you like. And then about a tablespoon to a tablespoon and a half of the spinach mixture. And we're just going to pull up the corners and cover everything. And press to seal. This is the perfect dish to make if you're going to have dinner guests. It can be made up to this point, and then it can go in the refrigerator until you're ready to cook it, even overnight if necessary. Before these do go in the oven, they need to be brushed with 1 egg beaten with about a tablespoon of water. I have my oven preheated to 425 degrees, and I do have the convection oven on. These are going in the oven for 30 minutes. Once we put the pork Wellington in the oven, we can get started in on our mushroom sauce. For that, I've got 8 ounces of cremini mushrooms that I've sliced thinly, along with 2 large shallots that I've diced finely, 1 cup of chicken broth, 2 cups of white wine, a teaspoon each of dried parsley and thyme, 2 tablespoons of butter, although we will need more, along with 1 tablespoon of tomato paste and 2 tablespoons of flour. We'll also be seasoning this to taste with some salt and pepper. I have my very large skillet on over medium-high heat, and I've got 2 tablespoons of olive oil in there. We're going to start by sautéing our mushrooms until they're tender. That'll be about 6 minutes. Okay, we don't want to cook these down too much. So let's go ahead and add in the shallots. We're going to let these saute for just a couple of minutes. Next in goes about a half teaspoon of kosher salt, a 1/4 teaspoon of black pepper, and our thyme and parsley. Okay, we just gave the spices just a couple of seconds to start them cooking. Now we're going to add in the tomato paste. And allow it to cook for just a couple of minutes. Okay, we're going to make a little spot for our butter. That's going in. And we're going to allow this to melt. Okay, now that this is melted, we're going to sprinkle in our flour. Get this all mixed up, and we're going to allow the flour to cook for about a minute. Okay, next in goes the wine. And then the chicken stock. We're going to bring this up to a simmer and then allow it to simmer for about 7 to 8 minutes until it's nice and thick. After that, we're going to turn off the heat and add in 1 more tablespoon of butter to finish. Okay. It's time to give this pork Wellington a taste. All those flavors are so good.